There was like one problem with evangelical fundamentalist apologists. It's that they don't listen. Now, I'm not saying this is for true of everybody, but it's a very common trait. They don't listen. They learn talking points and they learn how to give those talking points when they get certain triggers. But they don't listen in a deep way, empathetically. As Henry Nouwen said, listening is the highest form of hospitality. And to listen empathetically, is to really try to understand where the other person is coming from, what motivates them, what their experiences are, and then allow that to form how you then engage with them and respond to them. Time and again, I find that you don't get that from apologists who were trained with a series of talking points and then just to regurgitate those talking points when they get certain triggers. And that brings me to this 1 minute clip from Frank Turek that just encapsulates so much of what I find offensive and problematic about his apologetic work. The title is How to Talk to Someone That Hates God. I want to play that 1 minute clip and then we're going to debrief it on the other side.
How do you approach spreading God's word to someone who already hates God?
Wow. Why do you think they hate God?
I think that they think all the things wrong that happen in their life are God's fault and could be controlled if God loved them, and that they believe that God does not love them.
Okay, well, I would ask them, by what standard are they judging God? In other words, when you are saying that God, I'm assuming if you're angry at God, you believe he exists, right?
I'd say so.
I would assume that the person believes God exists. So I would ask, by what standard are you saying that God is immoral if he doesn't give you what you want? Secondly, I would ask, what is the purpose of life? Is the purpose of life that God makes us comfortable and gives us everything we want here? Is that the purpose? Are we supposed to be God's pets, in other words?
Okay, so that's the video. Let's now debrief it. Now, first of all, note that when this young man asks the question, he assumes that people are hating God. That's the first place I would start. I would start, why do you assume that a person hates God? And I assume that his answer would be, well, because they're angry at God. To which I would say, have you ever been angry at someone without hating them? Were the biblical authors ever angry at God? Of course, in endless context, not only biblical authors, but biblical characters were angry with God. Here's one example, Psalm 44. It begins by talking about how God has been so faithful to the Israelites and has blessed them in so many ways, and then things take a darker turn. For example, reading from verse 22 through verse 26. Yet for your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. Awake, Lord, why do you sleep? Rouse yourself, do not reject us forever. Why do you hide your face and forget our misery and oppression? We are brought down to the dust, our bodies cling to the ground. Rise up and help us. Rescue us because of your unfailing love. And that's where it ends. The psalmist here is saying, you've forgotten us. You're asleep at the switch. It's like you don't care. Where is the God that was so faithful to us and cared for us and protected us and delivered us? Where are you now? Does the psalmist hate God? Or is the psalmist expressing actual anger and frustration born of the intimacy of relationship? This is something that I find so often conservative evangelicals and especially apologists just don't get. It's like they think a proper, healthy relationship is one where you're like, it's okay, everything's okay, rather than expressing honest frustration, doubt, questions, and anger. But the reality is that a real relationship is one where one is free to express the emotions they have as they experience them, including expressing doubt, anger, frustration, without having that automatically somehow entail that that person hates the other person. And that is certainly no less true when it comes to God. That's the first thing is Frank Turek doesn't challenge him. He accepts that these individuals hate God. Fatal mistake. The second thing is, let's say that they are then angry at God, and you can't assume that they hate God. The bigger question would be, um, why? What gives rise to this anger? And that's a critical question that Frank Turek just does not seriously consider. I'm going to say here that you could say he strawmans it because he assumes that, well, the problem here is that they're not getting what they want, and they hate God because they're not getting what they want, as if the guy wanted to win the lottery and he's frustrated that God didn't give him what he wanted. Again, try listening with hospitality. Try deep listening to why people may be angry at God, frustrated with God. Get a sense of the actual reasons they may have for anger and frustration might be. Now, there is a modicum of truth here. Turek is right to note that the purpose of this world from a Christian perspective is not to minimize suffering and maximize joy. It is to make us good people, people of virtue, people who are conformed to the image of God in Christ. And that can include some degree of suffering. That much is true. What is absent from what Turek says here is any sense of compassion, any sense of pastoral wisdom or sensitivity to some of the things people may experience that give rise to pain, anger, and frustration. So let me give you an example of something that somebody quote unquote wanted in Frank Turek's language, but they didn't get. And I'll say, I don't know this person's thoughts about God at all, but think about how many people may be like this individual and may have legitimate anger. Okay. The case is a child, Jessica Whelan, who died of cancer. And what I'm going to do right now, and I want to prepare you, I'm going to show a picture that her father shared back in 2016 on Facebook when she was dying of neuroblastoma. So it's a very unsettling, painful picture. But I think this is exactly where you need to start when you engage in deep listening to the pain and suffering of other people, rather than just assuming that they hate God and somehow are in rebellion against God. So I'm going to show that picture, and then I'm going to read from her father's post on Facebook after his daughter passed. It's not easy for me, but this is what it means to listen deeply to the pain and suffering of others. This is Andy Whelan writing shortly after his daughter Jessica passed away in 2016. I feel both sadness and relief in informing you all that Jessica finally found peace at 7 o'clock this morning. No longer does she suffer. No longer does she feel the pain of the physical constraints of her body. Now my princess has grown her angel wings and has gone up to play with her friends and loved ones. She will now watch down over her little brother and ourselves until one day we are reunited again. Last night, she finally allowed me to hold her in my arms, and we had a big cuddle as I told her how much I loved her. I told her again that it was okay for her to close her eyes and go to sleep, and I kissed her forehead and her lips numerous times. It seems like this is what she needed to finally allow her to find comfort in her passing, as within 8 hours of this cuddle, she finally took her final breath. She was a daddy's girl from the start and even right up to the end. I feel like a massive part of me has just been torn away, but I am so glad that I could give her that comfort in her final hours. She passed peacefully and calmly, with not even a murmur. Thank you to every one of you who has shared and has been a part of our journey. I ask now for privacy for us and our family as we mourn the loss of our beautiful princess. From a heartbroken daddy, to the most amazing and beautiful girl. Ooh. As I said, I don't know what Andy Whelan's thoughts on God are. I do know that there are so many parents who have experienced this kind of loss, pain, and anguish. I can only imagine what that would be like as myself, the father of a 23-year-old daughter. I can only imagine how angry I might well be at God for having allowed my beautiful daughter to pass, God forbid, in a situation like this. To characterize the anger that people have toward God as, well, they just didn't get what they want, and so they hate God, is so cruel, so uncharitable, so unpastoral, so lacking in biblical virtues of compassion and empathy and love. It's just I don't know how to put it. It just breaks my heart that honestly that there are people like Frank Turek that go around to these university campuses, and this is the kind of witness they give. And you have Christian kids on campus that bring their skeptical and atheist friends to hear Frank Turek, and this is the witness that they get. Something that is just utterly lacking in these basic Christian virtues of listening and compassion and love. So I thought I would be angry when I made this going to make this video to talk about this what to say to people who hate God clip. But at the end of it, I just find that I'm deflated. Now, a lot of people say that not a lot, I don't know, a fair number have commented that they think my YouTube channel should have more viewers. I'm sure there's enough people who think it already has too many viewers as well, but I recognize that the videos I post, the production is crappy, and there are many reasons why people wouldn't bother to watch them. It's not about me or my videos, but what does dishearten me is that videos from people like Frank Turek that just teach you how to train you to have quick responses to every question, but without deep listening of compassion and love. Those videos are going to get 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 views. And then a video that is pleading for people to have basic pastoral sensitivity, compassion, and love, and engage in deep listening of others to hear where they are on their journey are going to get 500 or 1,000 views. I guess it's just indicative of the kind of world that we are in. Um, and truth is certainly not settled by how many views someone gets. That much is certainly true. So I would just implore everybody watching this video to learn deep listening and not assume that you know what other people are thinking or what their experience is, or you figured out why they hate God or even that they hate God. And instead listen to them on their journey over a cup of coffee or a pint of beer, understand where they're really coming from, engage in deep listening.